The quackpot Dr. Foulbrain has captured the sacred golden egg and has used it to crack the populace of Ducktopia to his will. Which mallard is mad enough to take him on? Well, I think it can only be Crazy Drake. And welcome to Goldfish on Games. Crazy Drake was developed in 1996 by Neurotech Software, with One Reality publishing it as shareware for MS-DOS. It was later ported to Windows, which is the version I have here, with eGames now handling the publishing, which is why this is a very basic box. On booting the game, we get a main menu that just screams the 90s, from the demo playing in the background to the instructions that spends more time telling you about the story of the game than actually going over the controls or things that you'll find in the game. You get to freely pick which of the 6 worlds you want to play, but let's start with Fun Forest, which is also the world that they gave away for free in the shareware edition. And what we end up with here is an extremely Earthworm Jim inspired platformer. And I don't just mean the look of the hero, but also how the levels are designed. As these aren't normal platforms that you might see in Mario or Sonic, it's this winding path style, with walls that will sometimes be solid and other times allow you to find new secret paths. Jumping and climbing up ledges makes up a large part of your progress, as you'll have to try and work out what the actual path is to the exit, and what ends up being side areas with extras. The designers had this habit of putting all of these platforms at the very edge of your ability to jump. It's not quite pixel perfect, but it does feel very close at times. And due to how vertical in nature these levels are, if you miss a jump, then it can be a long fall down, and then you have to make your way back up again. And along the way you'll have to deal with what looks like friendly critters but what actually turns out to be baddies. And the way we deal with the enemies is to shoot them with the machine gun style pistol. And thankfully, when you take out a baddie, they don't respawn. But the shooting feels really imprecise, as you're never quite sure if you're hitting them, or anything really, as there's no impact. So you end up just wailing up and down, hoping that you'll get a hit in. Luckily, you have unlimited ammo, but you will find silver bullets on your travels. They do more damage, I think, but they are limited. But by how much is anyone's guess, as they don't tell you. Typically you'll just be using them and it will stop, but every so often you might see the icon start to flash in the corner. On top of this, there are also smart bombs. Smart bomb! Just hit the tab button and everything on the screen will vanish. Now I joke that this was highly influenced by a certain Earthworm, but that isn't to say that this is a straight copy, as it does have a few of its own fun tweaks and ideas, like having to use the balloon to get across the shark-infested pit. Why there's random stations with balloons in a forest? I don't know. I guess that's what makes it fun. I also don't know why there's a huge bathtub with sharks in the forest. But it might be because they're there that they're so hungry that they're willing to eat a duck. Now this is really all part of that wacky, surreal 90s humour that this game was aiming for. Something that's carried over to the other 5 worlds, as they're all unique with their own artwork and baddies that you'll face. And if you start the game from Fun Forest, it will then take you to Factory Frolics, where you'll have to deal with robots and helicopters with boxing gloves. And no matter what else I will say about this game, it has some nice pixel art and animation going on. As just look at this level's equivalent of the spikes. It's a cocktail shaker. And the idle animations are also quite lovely as well. We then go on to the Haunted House, where you'll start in an actual house before going outside. and these parts feel far more like a regular 2D platformer. And we'll have to deal with 3 whole enemies. The levels themselves are absolutely huge, and there is loads of paths to take to get around them, to the extent that you might even get a little lost. And the developers realised this, so they actually put arrows to give you hints on which direction to go in. So where does a duck-based game go next? It has to be Eerie, Egypt. Then I think we can guess what the theme music is going to be like here. Yep, everything here is very stereotypical. But the audio they have in the game is great. There's some really catchy tunes, and while there's not a huge range of sound samples, it does have the odd bit of speech, typically around picking up objects. We head up next as we go to sci-fi space, which has more weird baddies, including this fun alien that morphs into our lead character. And what is the death pit this time? Well, it's Mulder and Scully.
I got one. I didn't get one.
And we land back down on Earth for slippery Snowland. That isn't actually slippery. Now, I'd say they should be brought up on false advertising, but to be honest, I don't actually enjoy ice physics, so this is probably a good thing. Now, these aren't the most creative worlds to ever show up in a platformer, and the baddies tend to consist of either 1 or 2 that walk around, with 1 that flies. And once you've seen one of them attack, you've pretty much seen them all. And if you play through the game in order and finish all the levels, then there is a super secret level that will open up that's based on the factory world. At least in this Windows version anyway. Each world is made up of 3 stages, and they tend to follow the same pattern. The first and third levels are your typical platforming levels, with winding paths and occasionally some form of gimmick, which will be introduced on the first stage, and then because if something's worth doing once, then it's worth doing a bunch of times, you'll get to experience it repeatedly in the much longer third level. But the second level is a little different, as it's a bit of an auto-scroller. Now you might have to go along a water slide, which seems out of place in a forest level, and then seems deadly in a snow world, but I guess you just have to go with the flow, as you jump over gaps, swing on ropes, and then avoid the random things that will show up in the water. Amazingly, this is the only water that doesn't seem to want to hurt our ducky hero. Other levels might just have a platform that you have to ride along, with similar sort of obstacles and things that you'll have to shoot at. But they did decide to shake things up for the haunted house, where you'll have to travel across falling platforms. And while for the most part this game was fun, this section was seriously not, as the controls and handling do not lend themselves to this level of precision platforming. This took way longer than any other part of the game to complete. Interestingly, it seems there were some changes made between the DOS original and the Windows version. Nothing particularly major, but it is fun to see. The name of the kingdom got changed from Loonville to Ducktropolis, as E-Games thought that Warner Brothers might not like the name, and it's for that similar reason that Drake's mask is now red rather than blue, as they thought it looked too much like Daffy Duck. Now, being a take on the Earthworm Jim formula, it also had to have comedy bosses, like having to avoid the Duck Hunter, which you'll take out by moving dynamite that will fall on top of them. But if you don't avoid their shots, then it's an instant death, so these are particularly difficult if you're not sure what you're doing. You'll also have to take on a foreman, who I swear is just doing their job and not harassing you in any way whatsoever. but you have to shoot a box that will fall and take them out. But you'll also have to fight against the evil Dr. Foulbrain on the third map. These tend to be the more simple shoot at them until their health bar drops to 0 affairs. Even when they're disguised as death, you could tell that this wasn't the real Reaper as they didn't talk in all caps. For the most part, these bosses aren't too difficult. That is, if you have enough health. But considering how sparing they can be with those, you might have to play very conservatively, as your health won't reset when you enter a new level. But it also doesn't help that losing against a boss could send you back quite the distance due to the checkpointing and save systems, as this has both. There are a tiny number of checkpoints in each level, and due to how the levels are designed, they can be very easy to miss. It also then commits the ultimate sin of not putting a checkpoint right in front of a boss. The flip side to this is that it has a save system where you can save almost anywhere. It's not quite quick saving as you do have to enter the menu, but it is damn close. The only time they take this away is during boss fights. Now overall, this is actually a fun game, and for the most part the controls work. Even if it doesn't give you enough grace period with the jumping off ledges as I'd like. But it looks nice and the music is very catchy, and that odd voice sample is also quite cool. Well, outside of when it reminds you that you're low on health, that one just gets a little bit annoying.
Low on energy.
This one hasn't shown up on any of the digital stores, which is a bit of a shame. But if you do manage to spot a copy, give it a go, as I think you will have some fun. And until next time, I was the Goldfish, that was a duck with a gun, and this was Goldfish on Games. Thanks for watching. I've had so much fun checking out these random 90s PC games, and if you enjoyed this, then consider liking and subscribing, as it really does help the channel out. And if you'd like to see more from me right now, then you should see links on the screen that you can go check out.